When you hear the name Men in Black, you probably think of either the comic book series or Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in black suits and shades saving the Earth from evil extraterrestrials. But the real life MIB that the comic book and motion picture franchise is based off of are nowhere near as charming as the real life counterparts. If you're not into ufology or conspiracy theories in general, you might have been surprised when I said real life. But it's true, the Men in Black are real. At least allegedly. Unlike the ones we're used to, these MIB are less about secretly protecting us from intergalactic threats and more about doing the threatening themselves. To start this video, let's start at the very beginning. 21st of June in 1947, a harbor patrolman by the name of Harold Dahl would report seeing 6 donut-shaped objects in the sky over Maury Island in Washington. According to Dahl, the largest of those objects lowered in altitude and began spewing some sort of metal that injured a worker and killed his dog. Dahl reported this to Superior Officer Fred Krisman, showing him snapshots he took. Krisman investigated, spotted a mysterious spacecraft, and was even able to retrieve what he claimed to be fragments. What's even more interesting is that Dahl would claim to be visited by a man in black the next day who eerily recalled specific details about the events of the previous day and would warn Dahl against ever speaking on what he saw, threatening him if he ever went public with his story. Dahl, of course, went public with his story, sharing it alongside Krisman with several magazines and newspapers, catching the attention of one Ray Palmer, author and editor of the Amazing Stories magazine. Palmer reached out to aviator and businessman Kenneth Arnold, who himself had claimed to have seen UFOs near Mount Rainier in Washington. This sighting was actually the first widely reported one of the modern era. Anyways, Palmer provided Arnold with funds to travel to Tacoma near Maury Island to investigate the claims of the two men. He wasn't impressed, but he didn't dismiss the matter either. He contacted Captain William L. Davidson and Lieutenant Frank M. Brown of the Army Air Corps to investigate further. They flew out to Washington, conducted interviews, and even took some of the samples claimed to be from the spacecraft Dahl saw. But tragically, on the way back to California on the 1st of August in 1947, the B-25 bomber carrying them crashed, taking the lives of both men. Following their deaths, the FBI launched its own investigation, concluding the whole incident to be made up. It wasn't real. Harold Dahl himself would later publicly claim it to be a hoax. But regardless of whether Dahl and Krisman's story was real, the effect it had certainly was. The United States experienced a UFO phenomenon, with countless people sharing their own stories of sightings of flying saucers and crashes of extraterrestrial spacecraft, including the Roswell incident, one of the most famous events surrounding UFOs that happened only a few weeks after the Maury Island incident. The Summer of the Flying Saucers, as the summer of 1947 was called, was not the end of this. In the almost 8 decades since Harold Dahl's sightings at Maury Island, many dozens of people would report being visited by men in black, like the one Dahl claimed to have spoken to, after they personally witnessed what appeared to be extraterrestrial objects. There is no one description of these men, apart from, of course, their black suits, as it does differ between witnesses. Some describe them as appearing no different than any other government agent, while others recall them as being uncanny, with their skin and facial features seeming almost fake. While their appearances and features vary from story to story, one thing that is certain is their purpose. They pay visits to individuals that have sighted UFOs and taking pictures or were able to collect any sort of material from any non-Earth spacecrafts or were investigating UFO crashes or sightings. Essentially, any person that is in any form of witness to anything from outside our world can expect a mysterious knock on their door or a phone call with a monotonic and robotic voice on the other end. The men in black speak in precise detail about the incidents for which they're making their visits, possessing knowledge about the witness that has not been made public or shared with the police. They use this along with threats and sometimes harassment to instill confusion and fear into people to cover up any evidence of UFOs and to basically silence those that have witnessed anything relating to extraterrestrials.
Keep my wife's name out your...
One of the most significant encounters with the men in black is that of Herbert Hopkins. As the story goes, on the 11th of September in 1976, Dr. Herbert Hopkins, a physician and UFO investigator, was going over some of his files from a case he was consulting on that happened the previous year, where a man called David Stevens was allegedly abducted by aliens. He received a phone call from a man asking if he could come over and speak with Hopkins about his research. Hopkins agreed, and only a couple of seconds later, the man was coming up the steps to his house. He was wearing a black suit and hat, and according to Hopkins, had extremely pale skin, absolutely no hair anywhere on his head, and ruby red lips that appeared fake. As I believe I already established in this video, the man had knowledge of Hopkins' work on the case, knowledge he had no way of knowing. His movement was stiff and he spoke slowly, all a bit unhuman, which only served to make Hopkins extremely unsettled. In what is considered to be one of the most notorious events involving a man in black, the man had Hopkins take out a coin, hold it in his hand, and watch it carefully. As he watched it, the coin began to change color and fade slightly until it completely vanished. The man told Hopkins this would be his fate if he did not do as he said, and instructed him to destroy all his work and discard of the evidence he'd gathered, which of course he did. Now, who or what exactly are these men in black? There are a few theories that try to answer that. Some believe they are members of a government agency akin to the FBI and CIA, whose purpose is to cover up evidence of extraterrestrial activity. The existence of this agency could stem from the government's desire to keep UFO sightings and encounters a secret, whether that is to avoid public panic or to more maliciously make use of any sort of advanced technology and keep any valuable research to themselves. This is somewhat supported by some witnesses who describe them as appearing no different than regular government agents. The detailed knowledge they have could be classified information, which of course the public wouldn't know or have access to, and it's not like governments aren't able to get the information they want. Another theory posits that the MIB not only covers up evidence of extraterrestrials, but they themselves are extraterrestrials, tasked with silencing witnesses to keep their presence hidden and to protect their secrets. This theory makes sense when you consider how they're sometimes described, having appearances that look fake and uncanny, with behaviors that seem artificial, not like how normal people would look and act. They don't appear human because they're not human. In addition, some witnesses have reported them to possess unhuman powers, as with the coin vanishing in the case of Herbert Hopkins, which further supports this theory. Now, there is a third possibility, which, if I'm being honest, is what you probably had in mind throughout this video, and it's that the men in black are neither people nor aliens, but rather, they don't exist. But why would people make false claims about this matter, and why would several different people continue to do so for well over half a century? Some witnesses could have very simply made up stories of their encounters with the men in black. People have been fascinated with UFOs and extraterrestrial phenomena ever since the Kenneth Arnold UFO sightings. And with how attractive media attention and financial rewards can be, is it really crazy to think that some people might either embellish or straight up fabricate their experiences in order to attract book deals, movie contracts, or even just sell their story to some magazine or newspaper? With how lucrative these stories can be, it could be very tempting for some people to make them up for their own benefit. But it would be unfair to dismiss all the claims of interactions with the men in black as being made up. It could be the case, at least for some people, that the MIB are a psychological phenomenon. The psychological impact on these witnesses, brought on from fear and paranoia as well as stress and anxiety, could lead to hallucinations or the creation of false memories. Experiencing something that frightens them could lead the minds of some people to see and remember things that never existed. How would the minds of different people conjure up the same men in black? Well, the media. Indulging in the descriptions and tales of these mysterious men that has been plastered in the media for so many years can very easily influence the mind to include those specific elements in what it sees. Even I experienced some level of paranoia on more than one occasion while working on this very same video. Just reading up on the topic at night kept me looking over my shoulder to make sure there wasn't a man in black standing by my door. There's no telling what a person who actually went through a frightening event would perceive as real. Whether the men in black are government agents, aliens, or just figments of our imagination, one thing that is sure is that the whole topic is pretty darn intriguing. I'd highly suggest seeking more about it. It is pretty fascinating. Just keep a lookout for any men in suits.